When God isolates you from everyone. A painful but powerful purpose. If you are watching this right now, and it feels like everyone has quietly disappeared from your life, this message is for you. If conversations have gone silent. If people you once leaned on are no longer there. If obedience led you into loneliness instead of comfort. This is not abandonment. And this is not punishment. Stay with me, because what you are experiencing may be one of the most misunderstood moves God makes in a person's life. There is a sacred ache that begins when the world grows quiet around you. It does not arrive with warning. One day, the room is full of voices, obligations, shared laughter, and familiar routines. Then, slowly or suddenly, those sounds fade. People step back. Conversations thin out. The closeness you once relied on feels distant, unreachable. You find yourself standing in a smaller emotional space, asking questions you never had time to ask before. Why am I here? Why does this feel so empty? Why does it hurt so deeply to be alone? The pain is not imaginary. God knows the human heart was designed for connection, for being seen and known. Isolation presses on that design like a weight on the chest. It steals your breath. It makes ordinary moments feel heavy. Nights become longer, quieter, more reflective. Thoughts you once outran now sit beside you. Doubt whispers. Fear speaks louder. Even hope can feel tired. And in that silence, it is easy to believe the lie that you have been set aside or forgotten. This is where the misunderstanding begins. We confuse isolation with rejection. We interpret distance as punishment. We assume that if people leave, something must be wrong with us. But God's ways are deeper than appearances. When God isolates you from everyone, He is not pushing you away. He is pulling you closer. There are seasons when God removes external support so internal transformation can begin. Crowds can comfort, but they can also distract. Relationships can bless, but they can also shield us from facing what God wants to heal. Isolation strips life down to what is essential. It removes the noise so truth can rise. Be still, and know that I am God. Stillness is not empty. It is full of presence. In stillness, God reveals what busyness hides. In quiet, He speaks to places that were drowned out by constant motion. This process feels uncomfortable for a reason. Growth often begins with separation. Before God uses someone deeply, He often hides them briefly. Moses spent years in the desert. David knew caves before crowns. Jesus withdrew to lonely places to pray. Isolation is not absence of purpose. It is preparation. When God isolates you, He is often protecting you from voices that would interfere with what He is forming within you. Some people cannot accompany you into your next season because they are tied to your old one. Their presence might keep you small, familiar, or dependent. So God lovingly removes them. Not to harm you, but to free you. What feels like loss is often alignment. Faith changes in isolation. It becomes quieter but stronger. Without constant affirmation from others, you learn to listen for God's approval. Without distraction, you recognize His guidance more clearly. Trust grows not because life becomes easier, but because God becomes closer. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Want does not disappear overnight, but it loosens its grip. You begin to notice moments of grace in unexpected places. A calm that settles without reason. Strength that arrives when you expected to collapse. Clarity that forms where confusion once lived. These are not accidents. They are signs of presence. God is near, shaping you in the hidden places, teaching you to stand without leaning on what cannot sustain you. Prayer in isolation becomes raw and honest. There is no audience. No need for polished words. You speak slowly. Sometimes through tears. sometimes through long pauses. God, this hurts. God, I feel alone. God, I do not understand why this is happening. And in that honesty, something sacred unfolds. You realize God is not offended by your questions. He welcomes them. Prayer stops being a task and becomes a refuge. You breathe differently. You rest more deeply. You begin to feel accompanied, even when no one is physically present. Pour out your heart before Him. In isolation, the heart finally has space to pour. As days pass, the silence changes texture. What once felt sharp becomes softer. What once frightened you begins to feel familiar. You notice that you are no longer reaching for constant distraction. You sit with yourself more comfortably. You discover parts of your identity that were buried beneath roles and expectations. God uses isolation to clarify who you are and who you are not. He strengthens boundaries. He heals wounds reopened by unhealthy attachment. He teaches you the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness says you are missing something. Solitude says you are being filled. In this space, God becomes your anchor rather than an accessory. Faith roots deeper. Identity stabilizes. Peace grows quietly. There is refinement here. Motives are examined. Attachments are tested. You begin to see which relationships were rooted in love and which were rooted in need. God loosens your grip on what cannot last and strengthens your hold on what is eternal. This work is not easy. It requires surrender. It requires trust. But it produces freedom. My grace is sufficient for you. Sufficient means enough. Enough when others leave. Enough when plans change. Enough when the future feels uncertain. Eventually, peace settles in a way that surprises you. Not loud. Not demanding. But steady. Your breath slows. Your reactions soften. Isolation becomes sacred ground. A place where you were stripped, yes, but also strengthened. When God isolates you, He realigns your heart with His. He reminds you that you are held even when unseen. I am with you always. Always includes the quiet seasons. Especially the quiet seasons. When people return, or when new relationships form, you meet them changed. You love more freely. But you cling less tightly. You give without losing yourself. You listen without abandoning your inner voice. You understand now that connection is a gift, not a crutch. And if isolation comes again, you are not afraid. You remember what grew there. You remember how God met you there. You remember that silence can be holy. That being set apart can be an act of love. That what once felt like abandonment was intimacy in disguise. God did not isolate you to punish you. He isolated you to protect you, to prepare you, to draw you closer to His heart. What felt like emptiness was making room. What felt like loss was creating space for healing. What felt like silence was full of divine conversation. And now, in the stillness, you rest. You are no longer searching for noise to prove your worth. You know who you are. You know who holds you. And you carry a deep, unshakable peace. Born not from being surrounded by people, but from being profoundly, faithfully, and lovingly with God.